Okay, I want you to completely clear your mind for a second. Try to visualize this incredible, cinematic, ultra-high-definition scene of the ultimate heritage. We're talking about a state way before creation, before time even existed, before physical space was a thing. Just infinite, simple light filling absolutely all of reality, right? There's no lack, no motion whatsoever, no distance, and then, right within this state of absolute, unbreakable perfection, the very first inner distinction pops into existence, a created desire to receive delight. And you know what? That single, microscopic shift is literally the root of all existence.
It really is an incredibly powerful image, isn't it? And it brings us face to face with the ultimate paradox that we're going to be unpacking in today's explainer. We're doing a really exhaustive deep dive into the profound texts of the Talmud Eser Sefirot. Basically, we're figuring out how something entirely new can exist when infinite light already fills literally everything. And hey, I have to warn you right out of the gate. You've got to leave your physical understanding of the universe at the door. We are talking strictly 100% about the physics of spiritual space here.
Right, and that perfectly brings us to this direct quote from Baal Hassalam. He says, "The spiritual is separated by the force of disparity of form, just as the physical is separated by an axe."
Just think about that for a second. In our world, if I want two distinct blocks of wood, what do? I take an axe, I chop one block in half, and I physically move the pieces apart. Done. But in the spiritual realm, there is absolutely no physical matter to chop. If a spiritual entity acquires a new form or a new desire, it instantly splits into two entities. Boom. Just like that. The distance between them isn't measured in miles or light years. It is measured exclusively by the difference in their internal qualities.
So here is the million-dollar question. How do you actually create something entirely new when the infinite light, the Ohr Ein, already fills up all of reality? I mean, if the Creator encompasses absolutely everything, how can a creation exist as a distinct, separate thing without being swallowed up in that infinity? Well, the source texts are actually very clear on this. The upper light itself contains zero innovation. There's no kiddush, no novelty in the light itself. It's not like the Creator just made more light because, the light already was everything. So to make something actually new, you have to introduce a concept that fundamentally does not exist within the Creator at all.
And that concept is called Yesh MiAyin. It translates to something from nothing. The absolute only completely novel element introduced into reality, the one thing that was literally not found anywhere in the Creator, is the will to receive, or in Hebrew, the ratzon lakabel.
Exactly. Because think about the Creator's nature. The Creator's entire essence is just to bestow, to give delight. Who in the world would the Creator receive from? No one. So to carve out a space for a created being, the Creator had to bring forth this exact opposite quality, the desire to receive pleasure. This will to receive is the fundamental building block, the kli or vessel, of every single created being. That kli is the true and really the only place of created existence.
Okay, so how do these vessels actually interact with each other? In the spiritual realm, when things are far apart, it's called rihuk, and when they're close, it's called kiruv. And as the text exhaustively breaks down, this closeness and distance are strictly 100% based on the equivalence or disparity of form. That's heshtavut hatsura, which means similarity of form, or shinyu tsura, disparity of form. Look, if your desire completely matches the Creator's desire to bestow, you are in a state of total adhesion. You're right there. But if your desire is entirely self-serving, you are at the furthest possible spiritual distance from the Creator. It's not about geography. It is entirely a clash of intentions. Let's transition over to the hidden mechanics of all this. We're calling this the cosmic operating system, and we've got two pretty cool ways to help you visualize it. To really grasp the sheer mind-bending scale of these mechanics, let's look at some adult cosmic engineering first. Think of the will to receive as a receiver module, and the upper light as an infinite Wi-Fi signal. Disparity of form is basically a protocol mismatch. It's like trying to connect to a router with the completely wrong password. What happens? You are immediately separated from the network.
Right, and for the kids' video game version of this, desire is basically your character's inventory capacity, and pleasure is your energy, or XP. If your alignment is completely different from the source code of the game, you spiritually cannot log into the higher level servers. You're just blocked. You are separated entirely by your qualities.
Now, this will to receive, it doesn't just magically appear fully formed out of nowhere. It actually develops through 4 really distinct stages, which are known as the Dalet Bechinot.
Yeah, and these 4 stages are the absolute root operating system of all reality.
They are inextricably linked to the 4 letters of the Creator's name, Havaya, that's Yud He Vav He. Seriously, there is no light, big or small, in any upper world or lower world that is not structured perfectly under the order of those 4 specific letters.
So, let's break down those 4 steps. First, the root light expands. Simply put, the Creator wants to bestow. Second, the vessel awakens to receive that light. But here's the catch. The desire isn't fully established just because the Creator wants to give it.
Exactly. So third, a form difference occurs. The vessel suddenly realizes it is receiving, and it acutely feels that disparity of form. It feels opposite to the giver. So for the vessel to truly be an independent creation, we need the 4th step. It has to establish its very own desire. It's only when the created being actively yearns for and expands its own desire to receive that the will to receive becomes a completed, permanent vessel.
Now, before all this independent action and spiritual separation happened, there was this incredible initial state. The text says, before the creation, he is one and his name is one. The infinite light and the place, meaning that initial will to receive, were just perfectly, seamlessly unified.
We call this the state of Ein Sof, the infinite, right before the restriction. At this point, there was literally 0 disparity of form. You couldn't even distinguish between the giver and the receiver. The vessel was totally full. But because it hadn't yet done the independent work to align its form with the Creator, a massive, ultimate shift was required.
And that massive shift is known as the Tzimtzum. You can think of it as the universal firewall. To achieve true protocol compatibility, the vessel makes a monumental, universe-altering choice. It chooses to restrict its own reception. It actively stops receiving the infinite signal. And why does it do that? Because of the agonizing, unbearable weight of what's called the bread of shame. The vessel realized that by just receiving and receiving without giving anything back, its form was completely fundamentally opposite to the Creator's. So it installs this firewall. The light departs, a process called histalkalit, which creates a conceptual empty space of restricted desire. And believe it or not, this was the absolutely necessary first step toward achieving equivalence of form.
But making a choice once isn't enough to run an entire universe, right? You need a Masach, a screen. The Tzimtzum was just that one-time choice to empty the vessel.
Right, exactly. Because the infinite light, it never actually stops shining. It is in a state of constant, unrelenting bestowal. So when the vessel eventually wants to interact with the light again, it needs an active, dynamic filter, something to prevent the light from just flooding right back into that egoistic desire. The Masach is that active blocking mechanism. It's constantly rejecting the unauthorized packets of the infinite signal.
And this creates a really fascinating dynamic called Zivug de Hakaa, or the coupling of striking. Picture this. The light actually strikes the screen. The Creator wants to give, the vessel desperately wants to receive, but the screen blocks it. Smash. And because the vessel totally refuses to receive for its own selfish sake, it actively reflects the light back. And guys, here's the absolute secret of creation. That reflected light, that active resistance and pure intention to bestow, actually forms a brand new altruistic vessel. The original egoistic will to receive? Totally disqualified. Now, this returning intention becomes the new authorized bandwidth for the spiritual network.
So we're essentially looking at a dynamic between 2 types of light here. Ohr Yashar, which is the direct light, and Ohr Hozer, which is the returning light generated by that Masach we just talked about.
Yeah, and the Ohr Hozer literally becomes the new Kli. You only get to receive the direct light to the exact extent that you can generate returning light. Let's say your screen can reflect a massive amount of light with the pure intention to bestow. Well, congratulations, you just created a massive spiritual vessel. The capacity of your spiritual connection depends entirely on your active resistance to selfish reception. It's profound.
And you have to understand, this isn't some static frozen system. It entirely relies on histalkut and hitpashtut, which is the continuous departure and expansion of light. Think of these like continuous network pings. The light expands, it strikes the screen, it fills the vessel right up to its authorized limit, and then the light departs. But it doesn't leave it completely empty. It leaves behind reshemot. These are sparks of memory, little data packets of what was just experienced. And this continuous beating heartbeat of expansion and departure is exactly what carves out the boundaries and the very existence of every spiritual entity, or partsuf.
Now, just a quick aside for our really serious students out there. Well, you might see a lot of modern visualizations using color coding, like red representing judgment or the desire to receive and white representing mercy.
We are maintaining strict academic integrity with our explainer today.
Right, for sure. Those specific visual color shifts are not explicitly detailed in the source text we are analyzing right now. The text focuses purely on the mechanical forces, the desire, the light, the screen. We're not here to invent Kabbalistic explanations. We are sticking strictly to what is explicit in the source material.
Okay, let's keep moving. As we see how these vessels change, it leads us right into the cascading descent of the spiritual worlds.
So as the vessel's form keeps changing and that screen continues to thicken, the spiritual network naturally separates into different dimensions. First up is Atzilut. This is the highest bandwidth where the protocol almost perfectly matches the creator. But then, descending down into Bria, the screen thickens, and this introduces a true creation that is functionally separate from the creator. Then we drop even further down to Yetzirah. Here we have further restriction, and the text notes this is the realm of the formation of angels. And finally, we hit rock bottom, Asiya, our realm. This is maximum disparity of form. The network separation here is so extreme that the infinite light is practically completely hidden by layers upon layers of screens and filters.
Which naturally begs the question, why on earth create this massive spiritual distance in the first place? Well, the physical world was created to reverse the vessel of reception into a vessel of bestowal, ultimately cleansing that bread of shame we talked about. I like to call it the ultimate cosmic hack. By putting the human receiver module at the absolute furthest possible distance from the source code, the created being is finally given the actual space to do independent work. By intending to bestow delight upon the creator from way down here, we essentially reverse engineer our own code. We transform our vessel of pure reception into a vessel of bestowal, and in doing so, we completely eradicate the bread of shame.
And the final result of all that hard work is Dvekut, adhesion. This is the ultimate spiritual closeness, and it is achieved strictly through equivalence of form, heshdevut hatzara, with the Creator. I cannot stress this enough. Spiritual travel is not physical movement. You don't build a rocket and fly anywhere. You achieve Dvekut by aligning your internal operating system with the absolute source code of bestowal. The exact millisecond your desire matches the Creator's desire, you are glued together. You are unified, without a single inch of physical distance ever needing to be crossed.
It all really comes down to pirud versus Dvekut, separation versus adhesion. And we are warning our listeners again, please never imagine spiritual distance as physical space. If you feel distant from the Creator in your life, it's a pirud. It is a clash of intentions. Your ratzon lekabel, your will to receive, is just out of sync with the Creator's will to bestow. The work is entirely about internal protocol alignment. It's an inside job.
And this one profound rule really governs the whole shebang. Every spiritual entity that acquires a new form splits into two. Think of the implications of that. Whenever a spiritual entity develops a new thickness of desire or a new level of screen, it literally spawns a new spiritual dimension. The spiritual realm doesn't just erase the old form, the new form just splits right off and drops to a lower frequency, a lower world. Varying desires literally construct the entire architecture of the cosmos. It's wild.
All right, let's quickly summarize all this for you. First, desire, the will to receive, is literally the only true creation. It's the Yesh MiAyin. Second, spiritual distance is strictly measured by the difference in qualities, the disparity of form. Third, the Tzimtzum and the Masach, the restriction and the screen, those are the essential firewalls that actually allow us to earn our connection and avoid the bread of shame. And finally, adhesion, or Dvekut, is simply matching your internal protocol to the Creator's protocol of bestowal. Once you get past the terminology, it's a deeply mechanical and just stunningly beautiful system.
Which leaves us with the ultimate question for you to ponder: how will you improve your own dimensions and achieve equivalence of form this week? How will you actively shift your ratzon lekabel into bestowal?
Thank you for joining us for this complete journey through the Pardes. We hope these ancient truths help you and your family improve your own dimensions this week. If you enjoyed this full chapter deep dive, please like, subscribe, and share which part of the journey touched your soul in the comments. We'll see you in the next chapter.